The door came off its hinges at 2:47 in the morning. 12 of the most highly trained officers in the city poured through that opening, weapons up, eyes sharp, every one of them prepared for a fight. What they were not prepared for was the fact that the fight had been waiting for them. Sound, explosion, screaming, rapid gunfire, narrator, VO. In the first 90 seconds, 2 officers were down. And in the first 3 minutes, the building was a war zone. And by the time the smoke cleared, nothing about this mission looked like what it was supposed to be, because someone had told the Red Phoenix gang they were coming. Someone on the inside. Beat. Heart monitor beeping. Narrator VO. Officer Jack Donovan is lying in a hospital bed right now, unconscious, chest rising and falling on borrowed time. And the man who put him there isn't behind bars. He's sitting in a precinct somewhere, a badge on his chest pretending he doesn't know what happened in that building. My name isn't important. What's important is this. By the time this story is over, you will understand exactly how a street gang turned an entire city's law enforcement apparatus into their personal security team. And you will understand why the most dangerous man in this story never fired a single bullet. Stay with me, because this one goes deep.
Act 1. The Briefing Narrator, VO. To understand the ambush, you have to understand what the Red Phoenix Gang actually was. Most people heard the name and thought, street gang. Drugs, territory. The usual machinery of organized crime. That's what the city wanted people to think. That's what the department told the press. The truth was considerably more terrifying. The Red Phoenix had been operating in this city for 11 years. In that time, they hadn't just built a criminal network. They had built a parallel institution. Drug distribution, yes, but also weapons trafficking, contract intimidation, and something that nobody wanted to say out loud. A deliberate, systematic campaign to buy influence inside law enforcement. They didn't just run the streets. They ran the people who were supposed to stop them. Narrator, VO. Detective Carlos Medina had been building a case against the Red Phoenix for 2 years. 2 years of surveillance, informants, evidence collection, and 3 prior operations that somehow always fell apart at the last moment. He didn't know why yet, but he felt it. The way experienced investigators always feel something wrong before they can name it. On the night of the operation, he stood at the front of a briefing room at SWAT headquarters and looked at the 12 people he was about to lead into that building. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that not all of them deserved his trust. He ignored it. That was his first mistake. Scene, SWAT headquarters, 11 p.m. Officers gearing up, vests, weapons checks, tactical equipment. The fluorescent lights are harsh and white. Everyone moves with practiced efficiency. Carlos Medina, listen up. Tonight we hit the Red Phoenix at their primary operating location, the warehouse on Delancey. Intel puts Viper on site. This is the best chance we've had in 2 years to take down the head of this organization. Scans the room. We go in fast. We secure the perimeter before entry. No hesitation, no deviation from the plan. We bring Viper in alive if possible. Understood? Murmurs of affirmation. Jack Donovan, early 30s, broad-shouldered, checks his rifle with practiced ease. Jack Donovan, grinning slightly, fast and clean, just the way I like it. Marcus Rhodes, quietly, no smile. Don't do that. Jack Donovan, do what? Marcus Rhodes, make it sound easy. I've run operations in Fallujah with less chatter than I'm hearing in this room right now. Overconfidence gets people killed, Jack. Jack Donovan, sobering slightly. You always know how to set a mood, Marcus. Marcus Rhodes. I know how to get people home alive. There's a difference. Carlos Medina. Rhodes is right. This gang has survived 11 years because they are smarter than everyone who came for them. We do not underestimate them tonight. Looks at the room one more time. We move in 45 minutes. Get your heads right. Narrator, VO. Major Marcus Rhodes was not a police officer. He was a 20-year Army veteran, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, who had been brought in as a tactical consultant for high-risk operations exactly like this one. He had seen more combat than anyone else in that room combined. And because of that, he was also the only one in that room who recognized, in the pit of his stomach, what a well-laid trap felt like before it snapped shut. Marcus Rhodes, first person, measured, haunted. I'd been in operations where the intelligence was wrong before. You develop a feel for it. The way a building is too quiet. The way the timeline feels slightly too convenient. That night, everything about the setup felt like a performance. Like someone had arranged the pieces specifically for us to see. I told myself I was being paranoid. 11 years of combat does things to your instincts. Sometimes it saves your life. Sometimes it makes you see ghosts. Pause. That night, the ghosts were real. Act 2. The approach. Narrator, VO. The convoy moved out at 11:52 p.m. 2 SWAT vans, 1 command vehicle. No sirens. The city was quiet, the kind of quiet that a neighborhood gets when word has moved through it faster than police radios. Jack noticed it first. Jack Donovan, first person. Tense, alert. We were 2 blocks out when I realized the streets were empty. Not late night empty, wrong empty. No cars, no pedestrians, no lights in windows. In my experience, civilians clear an area for 2 reasons. They know something dangerous is about to happen there, or something dangerous is already waiting. Neither option felt good. Narrator, VO. He radioed Carlos. Jack Donovan, into radio. Carlos, streets are dead out here. Something feels off. Carlos Medina, radio. Keep moving. We don't abort on a feeling. Jack Donovan, radio. It's not just a feeling. There is 0 civilian presence 2 blocks out. In this neighborhood at midnight. That doesn't happen naturally. Carlos Medina, radio. A pause that lasted 1 beat too long. Stay the course, Donovan. We're committed. Narrator, VO. Jack didn't say anything else, but he reached over and checked his sidearm. Then his primary weapon. Then his vest. Then he told the officer next to him to do the same. Narrator, VO. The van stopped half a block from the warehouse. The team deployed in near silence, moving into position with the precision of people who had trained for exactly this. Carlos took the command position. Marcus flanked left with a 4-man element. Jack led the breach team to the primary entrance. Everything looked right. Everything sounded right. The only thing wrong was what they couldn't see yet. Scene. The warehouse entrance. Jack is at the door. Breach team stacked behind him. He looks back, makes eye contact with Marcus across the street. Marcus gives a single nod. Jack Donovan, quietly to his team. On my mark. 3, 2. The door moves before he touches it. Jack Donovan, sharp, contact. Explosion. The concussive force throws Jack backward. The world becomes noise and fire and disorientation. Act 3. The ambush, 1200 to 1730. Narrator, VO. The first explosive was planted inside the door frame, triggered by a pressure sensor that activated the moment the team approached. It wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to disorient, to scatter, to break formation. Because the moment formation broke, the shooters opened up from 3 sides simultaneously. This was not a gang defending their territory. This was a military-style ambush, coordinated, pre-planned, executed with a precision that required detailed foreknowledge of exactly how a SWAT team enters a building. Someone had given them the playbook. Jack Donovan, first person, raw, urgent. I hit the ground, and for about 2 seconds, I couldn't hear anything. Just a high-pitched ring in my own heartbeat. Then the noise came back all at once. Gunfire, shouting, someone screaming to my left. I got to my knees, found my weapon, and looked back at my team. 2 of them were down, not moving. And the shooting was coming from inside, outside, and above us simultaneously. I remember thinking, they knew exactly where we'd be standing. Narrator VO. Carlos hit cover behind a concrete pillar 30 feet from the entrance, his mind already recalibrating, not tactically, but psychologically, because the pattern of the ambush was too precise, too tailored. The shooters weren't just prepared, they were positioned based on intimate knowledge of SWAT entry protocols. And then his earpiece crackled. Sound static. Then a voice, calm, deliberate, cutting through the chaos like a blade. Voice on earpiece. Carlos, stop moving for 1 second and listen to me. You've been compromised. Someone on your team fed them the entry plan, the timing, and the formation. You walked into a box. You need to know who built it. Carlos Medina, pressing himself against the pillar, gunfire erupting around him. Who is this? Voice on earpiece. Someone who's been watching this for longer than you have. The mole isn't in the gang, Carlos. They're in your formation right now. The line goes dead. Carlos Medina, first person, shattered, furious. Everything stopped making sense and started making terrible sense at the same time. Every failed operation, every raid that went wrong at the last second, every informant who went quiet before they could testify. I had been blaming bad luck, bad timing. I hadn't wanted to consider the alternative, that someone I worked beside, someone I trusted, had been feeding this gang information for years. Voice drops. And now those people, whoever they were, had put 12 of us in a kill box. Narrator VO. Marcus had pulled his element back to a secondary position along the warehouse's east wall. 3 of his 4 men were still operational. He was laying down suppressive fire with the mechanical efficiency of a man whose body had done this so many times. It no longer
required conscious thought, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. Marcus Rhodes, first person, controlled fury. In the Army, when an operation goes wrong, you don't stop to process it. You adapt and execute. But this was different, because military ambushes happen because the enemy is good. This ambush happened because someone on our side was dirty. And the difference between those 2 things, emotionally, psychologically, is the difference between being defeated and being betrayed. One you can live with, the other one eats you alive. Scene. Inside the warehouse. Jack has pushed through the initial entry point despite his injury. A bullet grazed along his ribs that he has taped with his own trauma dressing. He moves through the smoke and debris, weapon up, searching for a defensible position. Jack Donovan, into radio, breathless. Carlos, I've got eyes on the interior. There's a secondary team in the upper level. They've got the angles on the main floor. We need to clear that before we can move anyone through. Carlos Medina, radio. Jack, you're wounded. Fall back to Jack Donovan. I'm operational. Don't pull me. I can see the upper level access from here. Give me 60 seconds. Carlos Medina, Jack Donovan, with a finality that ends the conversation. 60 seconds, Carlos. Narrator, VO. Jack moved through that building on adrenaline and something harder to name. Because somewhere between the explosion at the door and the bullet that kissed his ribs, Something had shifted in him. This wasn't about the mission anymore. 2 of his people were dead. This was personal. Act 4. The Betrayal Revealed Narrator, VO. Carlos found Viper in the building's rear operations room, a fortified space that had no business existing inside a warehouse. Reinforced walls, monitors showing live feeds from cameras positioned outside the building. A communications setup that looked like it belonged in a federal command center. Viper was not running. He was watching. Calm. Almost entertained. Scene. Carlos enters the room, weapon raised. 2 of Viper's men are dead on the floor, taken out by Marcus's element minutes earlier. Viper stands with his hands slightly raised, expression completely composed. Carlos Medina, on the ground, now. Viper doesn't move. You want to arrest me, detective? In the middle of all this? Detta gestures at the monitors. Look at those screens, Carlos. Look at how coordinated that was. Do you think a street gang did that? Carlos Medina, weapon steady, jaw tight, I said on the ground. Viper takes 1 slow step forward. We knew your entry point. We knew your formation. We knew your timing down to the minute. We knew which officers had medical training and positioned our shooters to eliminate them first. Pauses. Who do you think gave us that information? Carlos Medina, voice cracking slightly. You're lying! Viper, quietly, almost gently. Check the 3rd monitor from the left. That's a live feed from your own department's operations room. Has been for 14 months. Not Carlos's eyes move, involuntarily, to the monitor. And he sees it. His own department, his own people, the operational planning board visible in the background. Carlos Medina, first person, devastated. I want to tell you that I didn't believe him. I want to tell you that I kept my composure, stayed professional, processed it as tactical information. But the truth is, in that moment my legs went weak, not from fear, from the specific, a nauseating feeling of realizing that people you have worked beside, bled beside, trusted with your life, had been selling you to the enemy for over a year. Long pause. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? Somewhere in the back of my mind, I already knew. I had known something was wrong for months. I just hadn't been willing to name it. Viper, watching Carlos process this. There are names, detective. Written down, documented, amounts paid, dates, information exchanged. I kept records, not because I'm sloppy, but because in my business, leverage is everything. Tilts his head. 3 officers, 1 military consultant, 2 people in the district attorney's office, all on payroll. Carlos Medina, voice barely above a whisper. Who? Viper smiles. Now why would I tell you that, when the information is so much more valuable unsaid? Carlos takes 3 steps forward and slams Viper against the wall. A forearm across his throat. Carlos Medina through clenched teeth. 2 of my people are dead in that building right now. Give me a reason, give me one reason, not to end this here. Viper, strained but still composed. Because if anything happens to me, those documents go public in 60 minutes. Every name, every transaction, every operation you've ever run that they compromised. The whole city sees it. Beat. You need me alive, detective, whether you like it or not. Silence. Carlos releases him slowly. His hand is shaking. Narrator, VO. In 11 years of law enforcement, Carlos Medina had never felt as completely alone as he did in that room. Because he couldn't call for backup without risking that the person he called was on Viper's payroll. He couldn't trust the chain of command. He couldn't trust the system he had spent his career serving. He had one option: finish this himself. With the 2 people in that building he knew, with absolute certainty, were clean. Jack and Marcus. Act 5. Narrator, VO. Jack had cleared the upper level. 3 gang members neutralized, 1 wounded and secured. He came down the stairs with blood soaking through his makeshift dressing, his breathing ragged, his weapon reloaded. He found Marcus in the main corridor, and one look at each other communicated everything words couldn't. They were still standing, and they intended to stay that way. Jack Donovan, breathing hard. What's our count? Marcus Rhodes. 2 confirmed dead, Wilson and Torres. 4 wounded, 2 serious. The rest of the team has pulled to the exterior perimeter. And it's basically you and me and whatever Carlos is doing in the back. Jack Donovan, quiet fury. Wilson had a kid, 3 months old. Marcus Rhodes, jaw tight. I know, Jack Donovan, looks at Marcus. Someone told them we were coming. This wasn't random. Marcus Rhodes meets his eyes. No, it wasn't. Jack Donovan, long pause. Do you know who? Marcus Rhodes, slow, heavy. I have a suspicion I've been trying not to have for about 6 months. Yes, Carlos's voice crackles over the radio. Carlos Medina! Radio, controlled urgency. Jack, Marcus, I need you both at the rear operations room right now. And when you get here, do not contact command. Do not radio out. Do you understand me? Jack Donovan, into radio. Carlos, what's going on? Carlos Medina. Just get here. Trust me. Narrator, V.O. What followed in that operations room was the kind of conversation that redefines people. Not gradually, but instantly, permanently. But the kind of revelation that splits your life into before and after. Carlos laid out everything Viper had told him. The surveillance feed, the documents, the names he didn't have yet but knew existed. Scene. The 3 men stand in the operations room. Viper is zip-tied in the corner, watching with quiet satisfaction. Jack stares at the monitor showing the department's operations room. Marcus stands very still. The way soldiers stand still when they're keeping themselves from acting on instinct. Jack Donovan, staring at the screen. How long? Carlos Medina. 14 months minimum. Maybe longer. Jack Donovan turns slowly. Wilson and Torres are dead because someone handed this gang our entire operational plan. And that someone is sitting in our building right now. Carlos Medina. Yes, Jack Donovan, voice dropping to something dangerously quiet. Then we need those names. Marcus Rhodes, to Viper, measured cold. You said documents. Where are they? Viper shrugs. Somewhere you can't get to them without me walking you there voluntarily. Marcus Rhodes takes a single step toward him. I spent 20 years in the United States Army, and I have had conversations, considerably more uncomfortable than this one, with people who were far more committed to silence than you are. Crouches to eye level with Viper. I am going to give you one opportunity to make a different decision than the one you're currently making. A long, still silence. Viper looks at Marcus, and for the first time, something shifts in his expression. The composure cracks, just slightly. Just enough. Narrator, V.O. Marcus Rhodes never raised his voice, and he never made a specific threat. He simply looked at a man who had built an empire on intimidation and radiated something that empire had never actually encountered before. Someone who wasn't afraid of it. Narrator, V.O. 40 minutes later, with Viper in custody, the documents secured and the exterior perimeter holding, Carlos Medina made the most important phone call of his career. Not to his precinct commander, not to the district attorney, to the FBI field office. Because the corruption ran too deep into local infrastructure to trust local infrastructure to address it. Carlos Medina, on phone, standing outside the warehouse as dawn begins to break. This is Detective Carlos Medina, badge number 7741. I need to speak to the special agent in charge of public corruption. Tonight. I have a witness in custody, physical documentation of a multi-year law enforcement compromise operation, and I need federal protection for 3 individuals effective immediately. White pause and listening. No, it cannot wait until morning. 2 officers are already dead. I am not losing anyone else. Act 6, narrator VO. Jack Donovan came out of surgery at 6:14 in the morning. The bullet had missed his lung by less than an inch. The surgeon told Carlos afterward that another 30 minutes without treatment would have changed the outcome permanently. Carlos sat outside that operating room for 4 hours. He didn't move. He didn't make calls. Oh, he just sat, with the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on him like something physical. Carlos Medina, first person, exhausted, resolute. I've been asked what I felt sitting there. People expect anger or grief or some kind of righteous fury. What I actually felt was tired. The deepest tired I have ever felt in my life. Because it wasn't just about the ambush anymore. It was about 11 years of a career built on trusting a system that had a rot running through it that nobody wanted to see. And the question I kept asking myself, sitting in that hallway alone at 6 in the morning, was, how many operations failed because of this? How many people went to prison because of compromised evidence? How many walked free because someone in our building made a call they shouldn't have? Pause. The ambush was one night. The damage was a decade. Narrator Rhodes submitted his resignation from the tactical consultancy program 4 days after the operation, not because he was done fighting, because he decided to fight differently. He spent the following 6 months cooperating fully with the FBI investigation, providing testimony that ultimately led to the indictment of 3 police officers, 1 military liaison officer, and 2 members of the district attorney's prosecutorial staff. Rhodes. People ask me if I regret going in that night. The honest answer is no. I regret that Wilson and Torres didn't come out. I will carry that for the rest of my life. But regret about the mission itself, no. Because if we hadn't gone in, those documents never surface. The names never come out. The corruption keeps running. Sometimes the only way to expose a trap is to let it close and survive it. Narrator Viper, real name Damian Cross, was indicted on 47 federal charges including racketeering, conspiracy, weapons trafficking, and 3 counts of felony murder for the deaths of officers Wilson and Torres. His attorney argued that the documents he provided to investigators should grant him significant prosecutorial consideration. The federal prosecutor's response was reported to be brief and unambiguous. Narrator. The 3 corrupt officers identified in the documents were arrested on a Tuesday morning. 2 of them had attended Wilson's funeral the week before. Narrator Jack Donovan returned to active duty 7 months after the ambush. His first day back, he walked into the briefing room. I sat in the same chair he always sat in and looked around at his team. New faces. People he didn't know yet. People he would have to learn to trust. He told me later that the hardest part of that morning wasn't the physical recovery, wasn't the scar along his ribs, wasn't even the memory of that door coming apart in front of him. The hardest part was deciding, deliberately, consciously, in full knowledge of what trust had cost him last time, to do it anyway. Jack Donovan, first person, quiet, firm. You can't do this job from behind a wall. You can't protect people while you're protecting yourself from people. At some point, you have to make a choice. Let what happened make you smaller. Or let it make you harder in the right places and softer in the ones that matter. And I chose the second one. Pause. Wilson would have done the same. Narrator. 2 officers went into that building and never came home. 12 went in. And the ones who made it out brought down a network of corruption that had been operating for over a decade. Justice is not clean. It is not fast. And it does not always feel like justice when it arrives. But it arrived. And the men who walked back through those doors made sure of it. Bob beat narrator. If this story hit you, if it made you feel something real, drop a comment right now. Tell me the moment that got you. Was it the ambush? The betrayal? Marcus in that room with Viper? I read every single comment and I want to hear which part stayed with you. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that button. We tell stories like this every single week. Stories about real courage, real corruption, and the people who refuse to let darkness win quietly. And if you made it all the way to this moment, you already know this channel is worth your time. Hit like, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next one.